Takashi is a high schooler who's constantly depressed because his childhood crush dumped him for his best friend. Although he has other more attractive girls who like him, he's just a terrible simp who can't get over his first love, just like me.
You're trash.
Apart from his pathetic love life, Takashi is actually a skilled fighter who's not just brave but also has an extremely strong sense of justice, and would soon find himself in an apocalyptic world straight out of a video game. Episode 1. Takashi leads a group of students who are attempting to defend themselves against a horde of zombie high schoolers who are chasing them for a sip of their brain juice. They make their way up the roof, barely able to catch their breath, and make use of a baseball bat or any other available tool to bash the zombie's head. The only girl among them decides to stab one of the zombies chasing them with a pole. Go for the head, girl. Even Thanos said it. Well, she pays the price because the unaffected zombie takes the pole out of his insides and uses it to slam her against the wall. She falls down and immediately freaks out that the zombie is about to feast on her. But before it can gobble her up, Hisashi notices her plight and hastens back to score a home run with the zombie's brain. He reminds her that she's supposed to go for the head while they quickly make their way up, leaving Takashi to cover their backs. He takes one look at the number of zombies roaming on the roof who are feasting on unfortunate students and lets out a cry of frustration. Before this whole mess began, Takashi, Hisashi, and Rei had always been close childhood friends. Takashi used to always have a crush on Rei, but in the long run, his inferiority complex kicked in, making him assume that she'd fallen for Hisashi just because he heard her say her feelings for him had changed one time. While sulking on the balcony one hot afternoon, he notices a man banging his head sheepishly on the school gate. He watches from a distance as the teachers in charge interrogate the poor mute zombie who just wanted an autograph from the hot school principal. The PE teacher decides to show off his strength in front of the hot teacher and instantly regrets it when he is bitten on the arm by the zombie. The rest of the teachers watch as the simp collapses on the floor. They even think he died from the bite, but he soon starts transforming into a man-eating zombie that attacks the hot principal first before the other staff present there. Never forget, guys, ladies first. Takashi immediately heads back to the class and grabs his lady by the arm, ready to whisk her away to safety. As usual, Hisashi wants to know what's up, while a girl whom we'll call Sakura because she is basically useless, tries to hide her jealousy from the other end of the classroom. Takashi informs them of the incident at the gate, but Rei thinks it's another of his pranks meant to get her attention. He bitch slaps her in front of everyone, automatically passing a message that he hasn't come to joke around or seek some sort of validation.
Nice.
Together, the group of friends leave the classroom and the unbelievers behind, moving quickly to secure their weapons first before Rei is allowed to contact her dad, who is the city's chief of police. Her face grows pale in an instant when the line doesn't even connect and she begins imagining the worst, all the while frozen in shock. At the same time, it is announced that the school is to be immediately evacuated due to violent attacks on the lower floors. Everyone listens intently to the announcer's directions, but he too is attacked and everyone is forced to listen as he screams in despair through the microphone while he is devoured by the zombies. The whole school is thrown into ultimate chaos as everyone pushes each other aside, caring only for their own skin. Thanks to Takashi, they are the first to leave the hallway before eventually running into their Japanese teacher who has been zombified. It goes into a scuffle with Rei, who is holding a pole, but she hesitates since the guy used to be their teacher. However, with a little push from Hisashi, she fights back by displaying her incredible athleticism, which allows her to land successive hits on him before stabbing him in the chest. Of course, this isn't enough to finish off the zombie, who starts moving despite the pole stuck in his heart. Hisashi hurries to her aid and locks the zombie's neck from behind like a jiu-jitsu master, but it simply does a 270-degree head spin and bites him on the arm. They try to make him let go of Hisashi, but their efforts remain fruitless until it bites off the piece of his arm completely. Hisashi begins screaming in pain disgracefully in front of his girlfriend, who also bursts into tears and prompts Takashi to man up and do something instead of peeing his pants while standing like a complete idiot. He then rushes at the zombie and bashes it on the head, splitting its skull and eventually killing it for good. It immediately dawns on them that they can't possibly take on the zombies by themselves, so they head to the roof in hopes of hiding in the observation tower, which is totally secure. On their way, they also notice the entire city has been turned on its head and their special defense force has already deployed its personnel across the city. Rei starts waving for help at the incoming SDF aircraft, but Hisashi tells her not to bother waiting for their help because they have their priorities, and it's certainly not them. They then watch as the students who weren't as lucky as them are devoured by the zombies. Everyone is looking out for only themselves. And even best friends betray each other when faced with life-threatening situations. In a few minutes, the whole school has become a monster fest. However, Takashi and his friends have managed to secure a safe spot for themselves. Unfortunately, Mr. Jiu-Jitsu Black Belt has started zombifying, coughing out blood like a water fountain and eventually losing himself in mere seconds. He tells Takashi to help him die peacefully by throwing him off the roof. However, Ray has none of it and would rather watch as he sprays blood all over the place while in the final stages of his painful transformation. Takashi swallows his fears and moves to end Hisashi before it's too late, but Ray starts bitching and talking absolute nonsense out of her mouth. He claims that Hisashi is special, therefore he won't turn into a zombie like the others. Just then, Hisashi rises up fully zombified and ready to have his first bite, but Takashi shatters his dreams by shattering his skull. Ray begins yelling in agony as soon as he passes away, saying that she would have preferred to be bit by Hisashi than be without him. She also accuses Takashi of secretly enjoying Hisashi's death since she basically chose him over him. Takashi decides to give her some space by venting his anger on the zombies through his bat. However, she holds on to him before he can remove the barricades and apologizes for her impulsiveness. They then decide to take a breather by relaxing their heads and reevaluating the situation for a bit. But this also becomes a problem because they have to stare at Hisashi's corpse continuously. Damn, this wasn't the Netflix and chill date dude had in mind.
What?
Ray borrows Takashi's phone in an attempt to call her dad using a private line a second time. This time he miraculously picks up, and like any other dad, he begins instructing them on how to evacuate the city safely. The commotion over at his end makes the line cut off again, and all they can hear are gunshots as well as chewing sounds. Don't worry, Ray, I'm here if you need someone to call daddy. Ray bursts out in tears because she has now realized her family is gone and the only person she can rely on for now is Takashi, the same dude she rejected because he was lame. Meanwhile, inside the building, Sakura finds herself stuck with a fatso who is not only useless athletically but also an idiot who can't even think for himself. He continues ranting about contacting the police to come save them, so Sakura takes it upon herself to explain to him that Japan is too populated and no one has their time. Meanwhile, in the nurse's office, a carefree nurse will call Melon Sensei is being protected by a total simp who can't help but protect one of the last surviving giant melons left in the world with his life.
That looks delicious.
He too is shortly overrun by a horde of zombies, and when they move to attack Melon Sensei, a girl shows up with a wooden katana and slays them all swiftly at the speed of light. The calm and collected girl introduces herself as Seiko. She quickly acknowledges the simp's bravery, but makes it clear that they certainly can't have a zombie simp chasing after them in the school. She goes on to finish him off for the greater good, and then she prepares for the next wave of zombies with a villainous grin on her face. She's probably excited. She just got a free ticket to play a live-action zombie apocalypse video game. Sakura and the fatso find their way into the lab where they have the opportunity to work with some technical equipment. This is where the fatso turns on his inner genius out of the blue. He quickly constructs a makeshift rifle using a plank and a gas-powered nail gun. With this, he turns on his inner John Wick in the nick of time to headshot the attacking zombies one after the other. He instructs Sakura to safeguard the nails for him in the heat of the battle, but she won't have a useless fatso order a genius like her around. He then appeals to her ego by actually begging her, so she has no choice but to do what he asks. Back on the roof, Takashi and Ray clear the barricade and the horde of zombies behind it with a fire hose. He praises her for coming up with such a brilliant idea on her own, but she reminds him that she simply recalled when they used to take firefighting lessons together. This talk only brings back Takashi's PTSD, which she notices and immediately changes the topic. The duo uses their bat and spike to clear any enemies they encounter while heading down the floors, optimistic that some students might still be alive. Fatso continues John Wicking the SHT out of the zombies while Sakura does nothing but nag and control him while oblivious to an admirer ready to sample her from behind. She screams immediately, terrified of her impending death, alerting Fatso, who tries to intervene but runs out of ammo in his nail gun. As a last resort, she takes the first thing her hand touches and drills it deep into its head while screaming, "I want my mommy." The other duos arrive as a result of her constant screaming, and they immediately split into different directions to deal with the threats around them. Once everything calms down, Sakura finally lets her guard down, allowing the trauma of the whole incident to completely overwhelm her. It turns out she's been intentionally acting like a bitch to motivate the fatso to man up, and now that she doesn't have to play the bitch role anymore, she lets out a fountain of hot tears. They decide to reevaluate the situation in the teacher's lounge, where they learn from the news that the police have begun taking drastic measures to end the commotion all around the city. They soon learn that the zombie apocalypse is happening simultaneously all around the world, not just in Japan. Rei tries to stay optimistic about the situation, but Sakura makes it clear that they are in a pandemic, so the situation won't get better anytime soon. They propose waiting out the spread of the infection, believing that the undead will decompose after a while, but Sakura advises them not to rely on their medical knowledge and instead to find their families and spend the little time they have left with them. They rush out of the school and into the parking lot, and when they see some students surrounded, they spring into action and save them like a special elite force of ninjas. They then decide to return to the buildings to plan their route to the car, and Sakura informs them that she has discovered that zombies cannot use their visual sense, but they will need a volunteer to test the theory. After a while, Takashi willingly volunteers to become the sacrificial lamb, and although Rei strongly opposes his decision, he goes ahead to test out the theory. Man's scared SHT less, but he succeeds in proving the theory right and ultimately boosting his writ.
We do not care.
He throws a shoe towards the corner to draw the zombies' attention away from their path. Then he opens the main door and gives the group the okay to approach. Everyone starts heading towards the door in haste until the last guy's weapon bangs on the railing.
It was at this moment that he knew he f***ed up,
producing a loud sound that echoes throughout the school. The zombies in the school's vicinity all rush towards their location, so they have no choice but to make a run for it. Takashi takes the lead, bashing head after head while Siko and the others follow suit behind. En route to the bus, the same guy who ruined their plan earlier is the first person to be surrounded and bitten by the zombies. His girlfriend immediately turns around to reunite with her man, but Sakura tries to stop her foolishness. She lets go of her grip and heads into the food festival to become zombified alongside her boyfriend. Sakura is furious that she's only surrounded by idiots who take inspiration from the Romeo and Juliet story. They manage to make their way into the bus while Takashi and Siko hold the last line of defense. Before they can zoom off, some survivors being chased from a distance beg them to wait a little while. Rei notices a scummy teacher who she absolutely loathes and makes sure Takashi doesn't save him. At first, Takashi doesn't understand why she hates the guy, but soon everyone finds out the truth when the teacher stumps a student who asks for his help when he tripped. Since the guy is a total scumbag, let's call him Scum-kun. Melon Sensei speeds off with the bus, running through the zombies like a bunch of empty water cans along the way. Once outside, Scum-kun quickly suggests that they appoint a leader, even though they've been surviving solely on teamwork all the while. There is soon an argument about where they should go next, and one of the students they rescued earlier attempts to start a fight with Takashi, but Rei quickly puts him in his place using her pole. Scum-kun uses the commotion as an opportunity to bring up the issue of choosing a leader once again, presenting himself as a suitable candidate as he is the only teacher on board. All the students he brought in with him firmly support him with their majority vote, so he appoints himself the leader of the group. Remind me to never trust a thin-eyed anime character. Rei is so pissed by this development that she gets off the bus and tells Takashi she'll never go back in until the teacher is dealt with. Before they can come to a conclusion, another bus filled with zombies crashes into theirs, causing a huge accident in the process. The bus blocks the tunnel under the bridge, separating them from the rest of the group who are still inside the bus. Takashi hastily discusses a plan to rendezvous the next evening with Siko, and afterward, they all rush away from the scene before they are caught in the explosion from the bus on fire. Immediately after they get out of the tunnel, Takashi is attacked by a powerful biker who catches him by surprise. Despite the helmet on his head, it begins to strangle him while attempting to bite him, but Takashi struggles to ensure that the zombie's kiss does not reach him at any cost until Rei finally sneaks up from behind to save him just in time. Episode 4. They use the rider's bike to make their way around the zombie city until the night eventually comes. Takashi advises Rei to quickly touch grass because nobody cares about them if she continues to wave at various aircraft like an idiot, hoping for help.
Hell no! No!
At the other end, the group on the bus is stuck in traffic and is barely able to cover a reasonable distance thanks to the military's strict surveillance. Once the undead are spotted, they quickly shoot them down without hesitation. The loud noises from their guns scare the fragile girls on the bus, allowing Scum-kun the perfect opportunity to solidify their dependence on him. After riding a bike around the city for hours, their butt begin to hurt, so when they see a police car sitting in a corner, they decide to change their ride to something more comfortable. They excitedly approach the car, but they are shocked to see that a truck has crushed the police officer inside. Rei loots the corpse's weapons without hesitation and hands the gun to Takashi, who holds it like a fragile egg. Rei also hands him some blood-stained bullets she looted from another dead cop while he struggles to even hold the gun. Rei suggests that they throw away their old weapons now that they have new weapons. However, Takashi tells her to hold on to them because a gun tends to be useless when the welder can't shoot his shot. They head to a gas station to fill up their bike, only to find out it's a self-serve station that uses cards or coins for operation. Takashi tells her he doesn't have enough cash to fill up their tank, to which she responds by cursing him. Takashi takes offense and accuses her of comparing him to her dead boyfriend who was very rich.
Me personally, I wouldn't take this level of disrespect.
And this only makes her curse him more by calling him a broke ass. He then asks her to pay for the gas, but she starts making up excuses about the whereabouts of her purse. TFFT, like women ever pay the bills.
You're broke! You're fucking poor!
He walks away and tells her to hold the fort while he figures something out inside the minimart attached to the fuel station. He tries to operate the cash register, but since it has also been damaged, he uses the opportunity to take an activity off his bucket list. He smashes the living daylights out of the machine until it starts spitting out cash the way Eminem spits out bars. While he has his fun inside, Rei is assaulted by a drip lord who holds her hostage and has a knife to her neck. He makes Takashi toss away his bat and fill up the bike's tank using the money he stole from the cash register. He tries to reason with the drip lord, but the guy has long gone senile, and the only thing that can help him think clearly is post-nut clarity. Takashi smartly closes the distance between them, points a gun close to his chest, and fires it without hesitation. The guy starts screaming in pain like a little baby, but Rei apparently wants to punish him herself for messing with her. Takashi quickly stops her, drawing her attention to the horde of zombies heading their way thanks to all the yelling. They quickly leave him behind as a souvenir for the zombies to feast on while they make their way to safety. Episode 5. The next day, Sakura's group is still stuck in traffic and is forced to listen to Scum-kun's mind-numbing speeches. Fatso suggests they head to an area that has a lot of military presence rather than stay in the city where there might not be any means to protect themselves. Sakura embraces the concept, and the two begin to plan their next steps. She claims that those places would be strict about who they let into the city and that they might even be killed on the grounds that they may be infected. At the same time, Takashi and Rei run into some thugs who are running riot in the streets. When the group notices their presence, they start shooting at them indiscriminately, not caring whether they are infected or not. They manage to speed past the flying bullets and successfully avoid the chaos, only to witness the police brutally shooting down normal civilians who are attempting to cross over the bridge to a safe zone. Just as Sakura surmised, any little mistake by civilians trying to cross most likely leads to death. A group of overly enthusiastic kids soon approaches the checkpoint, flaunting a lot of cash and claiming that they do not need to listen to the police. The police only give them a warning before they are immediately shot into the ocean using a fire hose rather than real guns because they aren't real threats. While Scum-kun continues his endless speeches like a fraternity recruiter, Siko suggests that they leave the bus and meet up with Takashi as planned the day before. Sakura cannot help but suspect Siko has feelings for Takashi, but she denies it, claiming she only cares about their promise, an obvious excuse that enrages Sakura, who grits her teeth in silence. Once Melon-sensei offers to accompany them to the rendezvous point, Scum-kun catches on to their plot and asks them what they plan to do. They clearly remind him they have no obligation to stick with him. However, it seems like he only wants Melon-sensei to stay behind because she carries a national treasure with her. He tries to approach them only to be stopped by Fatso, who grazes his face with his nail gun rifle. He tells him he intentionally missed and wouldn't mind messing up his pretty face to make up for all the times he made his minions bully him in school. Fatso suddenly unleashes his inner Joker, and with a visible smirk on his face and eyes filled with resolve, he successfully intimidates Scum-kun to the point where he backs down, giving the girls plenty of time to leave without incident. Once outside, they soon come to regret their decision to leave the bus as they are immediately surrounded by zombies once again. Fatso complains that he is almost out of ammo, hence it falls on the strong and mighty Siko to lead their attack. Takashi appears from the sky on his bike, followed by Rei, who begins working her magic with her pole, just as they are about to be overwhelmed. Takashi tosses his gun over to Fatso, who's more of a natural marksman than he is and can even pull a video game move in real life. Takashi goes on to clear out some zombies using his back tires like a biker gang member before pulling an impulsive combo attack featuring Siko and her trusty wooden sword. After a brief heartfelt reunion, Takashi informs them that the bridge ahead is a no-go area, meaning they'll have to find another route out of the eastern part of the city. Melon-sensei informs them that there's a place they can lay low for the night, and not only does it have a nice view, it also has a big car everyone can fit in. Once everyone agrees to the plan, Takashi heads out with Melon-sensei to make sure the place is safe before the others follow suit. We see what you're trying to do, Takashi.
Stupid, I'm not gonna let you get the chance.
Episode 6. Eventually, they all arrive at the apartment at the edge of town where there aren't a lot of people. Fatso becomes excited once he sees for himself that the vehicle in the apartment is actually a military-grade tank, which makes everyone assume Melon-sensei's friend must either be a military big shot or with the mafia. What do you guys think? The guys start checking around the house for weapons, and soon they eventually hit the jackpot by cracking open a locker in the sitting room. Inside the locker are sets of every American's dreams, and Fatso can't help but brim with joy the moment he lays his hands on some of the latest models of rifles. He starts ranting about the specs of the gun, something only a COD mobile addicts can relate to. Takashi tries to talk to him, but he's totally invested in checking out every single one of the beauties before his eyes. I'm pretty sure he'll choose these guns over a date with Sakura. When Takashi playfully points a shotgun at him, he freaks out because apparently it might just be loaded. He tells Takashi he'll surely get a chance with the undead outside because the war isn't ending anytime soon, as negotiations can't be made with the zombies. Fatso begins loading the guns one after the other, prompting Takashi to inquire where he learned to use a gun. Unsurprisingly, Fatso reveals that he once traveled to America and was trained for a month by a professional marksman who had previously served in the Delta Force. After loading the guns, they turn on the TV, where they watch a live protest by civilians still stuck on the bridge they gave up on crossing earlier. The protesters claim that the pandemic is the result of a leaked biological weapon and are demanding that the government answer for its crimes. To make matters worse, an infected child who is in her mother's care turns into a zombie and bites her mother. Both of them become full-blown zombies in mere seconds, and the police freak out, which makes them end up popping their heads off quickly. The protesters who bore witness to the incident are further agitated by a loud-mouthed man who seems to be their leader. He begins accusing the police of abusing their powers, which makes the chief approach him in a cold manner, calmly telling him to stand down. When he refuses to listen, he is shot down by the chief of police. He dies instantly, and everyone soon comes to the realization that their fundamental human right doesn't mean crap anymore. While the unarmed civilians begin to panic, some police officers lose their will to stay alive and simply log out of the game while they are still sane. Episode 7. Over at the apartment, a dog's bark draws the attention of a bunch of zombies towards their location. The lone man tries to hold them off with his gun, but he only ends up attracting attention to himself and eventually getting overwhelmed in the process. Takashi suggests that they clear the area with the guns they acquired, but Seiko objects to this, stating that it'll only compromise their location. She also turns off the lights in the house to avoid attention from the living who might try to take advantage of their chivalry. While observing the neighborhood, Takashi spots a father and a child trying their best to escape from the zombies. The dad knocks on the door of a building with lights on, but the occupants tell him to go away. He begs them to take in his child at least, and after several vain pleas, he threatens to break down the door if the heartless piles of trash don't help his daughter. They eventually give in to his demand, promising to open the door just to calm him down. When he lets down his guard, they open the door and stab him in the chest in front of his daughter, all while apologizing for their heinous actions. The little girl screams in tears, promising to return as Batwoman and one day take her revenge on the villains. Her dad tells her to quickly hide herself where there's no one else and dies shortly after. Her loud crying attracts the zombies into the compound while Takashi struggles to keep himself from acting impulsively. However, Fatso headshots the zombies close to her one after the other, giving courage to Takashi, who immediately heads out to rescue the little girl. He mounts a loud bike and zooms away from the apartment alone, while Fatso supports him with firepower from the balcony, allowing him a smooth ride towards the girl's location. He makes a sharp turn into the compound only to trip on a corpse and almost wrecking the bike in the process. Before he can even take action, Fatso covers the entrance with his amazing snipping ability, allowing him to focus on saving the little girl. He uses a crowbar to bash the zombies' heads one after another, and when one manages to sneak up behind him, he uses his gun and is like, "Eat this bitch." Meanwhile, the girls prepare to evacuate the building to go help Takashi, who certainly won't be able to find his way back with a bike. Takashi helps the little girl put her dad to rest by placing a flower and clothes over his corpse.
R.I.P.
Once she finds her piece, he gives her a piggyback ride along the fence while trying his best not to trip a second time in the same night. Suddenly, the girl informs him that she needs to pee urgently. Takashi asks her to hold it in, but she tells him she cannot because she's been holding it back even before her dad died.
Hey yo, what the f?
In addition to walking on a thin line along the fence, Takashi is faced with a new problem where he can either tell her to pee right where she is or pull an impossible stunt like taking her to the bathroom. In the end, he gives her permission to pee on him, however, since they've been standing on one spot for too long. They are surrounded by the zombies once again. Just then, the group charges through the horde of zombies with the tank and arrives at their location to rescue them in time. Seiko is the first person to start kicking asses, while Fatso follows suit with a shotgun that sends a bunch of zombies flying all at once. They buy enough time for Takashi and the little girl to hop on the vehicle, and then they zoom off honestly glad that they survived another day in the zombie pandemic. Episode 8. The next day, they use the tank to cross over to the other side of the river by passing through its shallow part. They properly introduce the little girl whose name is Alice, and she immediately hits it off with the girls as expected. Fatso hands the shotgun to Takashi, who is always insistent on using his bat. He tells him that even though he is useless with a gun, he should hold on to it since the aim of a shotgun isn't its accuracy. The girls finally have a change of clothes thanks to Melon Sensei, and the guys are starstruck when they find the girls looking all dressed up like a professional group.
Decided that I want to die.
This time, Rei also equips herself with a gun which works as a spear as well. The guys go ahead to scout out the area for possible zombie clusters, after which Melon Sensei drives the tank through the steep hill rather easily. They check the area, which turns out to be completely devoid of humans and zombies alike, and then decide to go over to Sakura's house to ensure the safety of her family. Rei draws Takashi's attention to the beautiful scenery and the fact that they have not encountered any undead since crossing the river. But the thought ends up jinxing their situation because they soon encounter a swarm of zombies, which they try to avoid as much as possible by taking alternate routes. They notice a wire line on the road on time and are barely able to avoid ramming into it headfirst thanks to Seiko's instructions. Melon Sensei has no choice but to follow Fatso's instruction by stepping on the gas fully and getting them out of the zombies' range as quickly as possible because the blood from the undead has locked the vehicle's tire in place. They accelerate towards a wall before she abruptly applies the brakes, flinging Rei away from the vehicle despite Takashi's attempt to hold on to her. She lands on the floor close to the zombies and becomes immobilized thanks to the impact from the fall. Hopefully her implants didn't pop. Takashi quickly jumps in to protect her by firing the shotgun at the enemies. He is barely able to hit anyone at first, but after a quick lesson from Fatso, he begins taking them out more easily than before. After a few rounds, he tries to reload the gun only to carelessly let go of the remaining bullets. Just like he stupidly let go of Rei even though he had more riz than her dead boyfriend. Seiko steps in with her wooden sword and together with Fatso, they try their best to hold the defense line that just keeps shifting back because of their huge disadvantage as a result of their inferior numbers. Takashi decides they still have a fighting chance, so he takes a hold of the rifle still strapped to Rei and begins firing it while using her as a support to cushion the recoil. As the battle drags on, Sakura decides to help out for the first time in her life. Although she doesn't know how to use a gun, she tells them not to worry about her as she can figure it out on her own. When a zombie approaches her, she freaks out
Oh, hell no!
and is saved by Seiko, who bashes its head and spills some brain juice all over her face. This somehow energized her to give her all in the battle, but despite their valiant efforts, the number of undead approaching them shows no sign of dwindling anytime soon. Takashi then takes the rifle off Sakura and heads towards the center of the undead along with Seiko. Together, they make loud noises in hopes of drawing the undead away from the main group. However, this plan fails as the zombies continue their march towards the direction where there are more women.
You serious?
Alice soon starts crying that she might lose her new family just like her mom and dad died for her sake. But Fatso has already made up his mind and is about to toss her across the fence to safety. Just then, a group of firefighters show up with a bunch of weird equipment that is just enough to blast the zombies away and save them. They thank the leader of the group for saving them, to which she responds that it's her duty as Sakura's mother. Episode 9. Although the main group has been saved, Takashi and Seiko have to fight their way through town if they are to rendezvous with the others. Takashi leads the way through the street until they arrive at a biker shop where he plans to borrow one for their use. Seiko tells him it'll be too loud to ride a bike and that instead, they can make use of a more stealthy vehicle that also works on water. They use the new vehicle to escape their pursuers down the steep slope, where they learn that the zombies can't walk on stairs. Despite this advantage, they are unable to shake them off their tracks completely, so Takashi takes a gamble by driving into the river where the undead are certainly unable to follow them. Once the zombies give up on the chase, Takashi breathes a sigh of relief only to be immediately scolded by Seiko, who tells him that it's wrong for a real man to sigh. They then decide to take a breather by a sandbank where they plan to relax until the cluster of zombies spreads out evenly around town. Once it's evening, they try their luck in town again by checking out various routes that can lead them safely to Sakura's house. He drives into a water fountain and makes her wet for the second time that day. What an icon. He tapes the accelerator to the vehicle, causing it to drive in circles indefinitely while they wait for it to attract the zombies in the area before sneaking out of the park through the east entrance. Once the zombies gather, Seiko takes it upon herself to clear their path with her wooden sword. She brilliantly strikes down the zombies stylishly and like a work of art, but abruptly comes to a halt when she encounters some baby zombies. I wouldn't even think twice before playing whack-a-mole these guys. She freezes in place, terrified, and is almost bitten by them. But Takashi quickly intervenes, moving her out of the way before pounding their baby brains out. They quickly find refuge in a deserted shrine up the hill, but despite their newfound safety, Seiko is still too traumatized to speak a single word. Takashi finds an actual steel sword at the shrine's altar and notifies her of it before leaving her alone to change her wet clothes close to the light. Once she's done, Takashi tries to lighten the mood instead of prying into her past, which must have triggered her in some way. Even without asking. She begs him to listen to her while she shares her story and the reason for her trauma with him. She claims that while a stranger attacked her on the way home from school one night, she used her wooden sword to defend herself and wound the man so severely that he eventually passed away, but that she was not actually acting in self-defense, but rather was a power-hungry samurai who enjoyed flaunting her abilities. She reveals that she is a terrible person who takes pleasure in violence, but Takashi disagrees because he has seen her fight for good since the first day of the undead pandemic. He tries to calm her down and they hit it off that night.
Yeah, boy.
Early the next morning, they find themselves surrounded by several undead despite making no sound that could possibly attract them. He takes his stance, ready to fight for his life, but notices that Seiko has basically given up on living because of her past sins. He then motivates her by confessing his love and admiration for her until she acknowledges it and snaps out of her pathetic sulking. She draws out her blade and begins slashing through the undead with so much pleasure, and a look of satisfaction as though every slash she makes turns her on. She shows off her beautiful swordsmanship by slaying every single undead at the shrine, after which they make their way through town before arriving at Sakura's massive estate, looking exhausted and completely worn out. Episode 10. The estate is so big that they even have employees who handle menial jobs around the surroundings. Takashi tries to help out when he finds the men struggling to move a box, but they refuse and tell him that he should let the adults handle stuff while he is free to goof around. Wow, is this heaven? It turns out everyone but him had already settled down, including Seiko, with whom he has a brief awkward moment thanks to their shrine shenanigans. Suddenly everyone hears Sakura screaming in anger from the upper floors, so Takashi decides to check up on her. She tells him not to worry about it and doesn't say another word as she quickly walks past him because her mom, with whom she's angry with, is following closely behind. Her mom is a beauty with purple hair, and unlike her daughter, she is very calm, beautiful, and acts ladylike too. In Sakura's case, I guess you can say the apple fell far from the tree. While complimenting the house, Takashi asks her if she plans on holding up in the mansion until the undead case is resolved, to which she responds by explaining that she plans on taking a few of her able men to the power plant where the SDF were deployed and using what's left of the place to set up a new base of operation. At the other end, where Fatso is working on their weapons, a man tells him not to play with a gun as he is still a child. Sakura makes it known that her guy got his kill count in 5 figures, although she's exaggerating.
Come on now, dawg.
They eventually manage to scare off the ignorant man who has been having it easy inside the estate. Fatso is impressed with how she handled the situation. She informs him that they have a bigger problem because if they hang out with the adults, they will be treated like children and will eventually grow soft. Then hold a meeting with everyone in the gang to decide whether they'll stay or go their separate ways, with the majority of the gang supporting the motion to stay and relax, like every normal human would choose. Cause YTF would you want to head back into a zombie fest just because you don't want to be ordered around? Takashi explains that it'll be wise to stick around people that have military experience and a well-organized group. However, Sakura is of a different opinion because, like me, no one likes to be told what to do when they're playing a video game. Sakura makes it clear that she adores her parents for how quickly they moved and completely secured the estate once the pandemic began. She has had enough of her mother's tyranny and will not put up with her any longer. Takashi grabs her by the chest and screams at her to swallow her stupid pride because she should be grateful her parents are still alive, unlike them, with no hope. Once things calm down, they notice the arrival of the most important man in the family, a former mafia boss and Sakura's dad. Finally, we get to see what a real man looks like for once. He gathers everyone in the yard to show them what a zombie looks like as well as how to handle them in the worst case scenario. He draws his sword and slays the undead man who was also his best friend without hesitation. The Commander Irwin's speech on the people and all the Takashi nonsense in hopes of motivating them to fight. But seeing a decapitated head floating on the water fountain like a football only frightens them more than his well-spoken speech. Fatso notices that Sakura's dad uses a katana, which prompts him to explain that it's a totally ineffective weapon because it can't cut through bones and would always break after a few kills. Siko makes him understand there's so much more to using a katana, but she only ends up pissing him off. In an attempt to calm him down, he tells Takashi to shut the fuck up as he can barely even shoot a gun. Storms off into the mansion and Takashi follows suit in a bid to settle their differences before it's too late. At the door, Alice makes him promise to make up with Fatso, encouraging him to try and understand Fatso's point of view a little more. A few moments later, Alice informs Takashi that Fatso has run into some problems with the men in the yard. Over there, he refuses to hand his babies over to them, stating that they are for his friends and he can probably shoot them better than anyone else around. The men try to gang up on him, but their boss arrives dramatically as usual, doing JoJo pose and introducing himself again even though everyone already knows his name. Fatso tells him that they can't make him give up his guns because without them he'll be just another regular useless Fatso once again. Takashi steps in just in time and states that Fatso has been protecting his daughter with his skills ever since the undead pandemic began. And the group also take his side, vouching for his abilities like their lives depended on it. Lastly, Sakura informs her dad that he has no right to talk down on Fatso because he has been the one doing his job for him by actually protecting her. Episode 11. Although they manage to convince the boss why they should be allowed to use their guns freely, the other occupants who have no clue about the monstrosities roaming around all around Japan think they are just high school students. A woman with a bitch face tries to incite her people to rebel against the Takagi family rather than listen to power-drunk high schoolers who actually believe zombies are real. The gullible people refuse to believe that the undead are actually eating people, and the group has no choice but to leave them to wallow in their ignorance. Meanwhile, the boss and Siko catch up about different types of katanas in a closed room. He hands her a rare blade, which she does not immediately accept. However, when he tells her to accept it as gratitude for protecting her daughter, she becomes more subtle and suggests that the blade be given to Takashi, appointed the group's leader. He then adds that although Takashi is a capable man, he has something causing his heart to waver. Therefore, he is entrusting his daughter's safety to her instead. In the room, Takashi grades every member of the team into various classes like the fighters, who are Siko and Fatso, Sakura, the intellect of the group, Melon Sensei, their healer, and Alice, the team's mascot. On the other hand, he feels he doesn't really have a special role like the others and isn't fit to lead. Ray tells him that he has the ability to always do what must be done either bravely or cowardly, and the reason he is best fit to lead them, and that's why she has also decided to fight for his love. Oops, too late, the girl with the wood already got him. That evening, Takashi informs the boss of their plan to look for their parents at their various workplaces. The boss tells him to reconsider since they plan to leave the estate in 2 days. However, he tells him they can leave without them if they don't make it back in that time frame. Everyone is so shocked at Siko's outfit that they ask her if she's more interested in seducing people rather than slaying them. She simply smiles at them, oblivious to what they're trying to insinuate but promising to be of help now that she has a new katana. Just then, Ray spots Scum-kun at the entrance and rushes towards him with her weapon in her arm. It turns out the self-righteous teacher is the son of a corrupt senator who had a beef with her father, the police chief, and decided to get to him by tampering with her grades, which eventually made her repeat a year. Scum-kun reminds her that she mustn't kill him lest she become a murderer who taints her noble family's reputation. However, the boss shows up and tells her to kill him, as he is well aware that the teacher's trashy behavior is a generational trait. Takashi tries to stop her, but he is held back by Siko, who feels Ray must make the decision herself. The man tells her she will not be able to live with herself if she murders him in cold blood, causing her to pause for a moment to consider her options before lowering her weapon and walking away without hurting him. The guy wears a look of utter humiliation on his face, which makes the boss send him and his cult members out of the estate despite the rain. Episode 12. At the end of the 5th day of the undead pandemic, great nations such as the United States and Russia begin firing missiles at each other as a last resort to ensure that their countries have the best chance of rebuilding once the world begins to recover. The next day, the group gets ready to set out when suddenly, Melon Sensei informs them that she has recalled the phone number of her friend who is part of the special assault team. She borrows Takashi's phone to get through to her, but just when they start catching up, there's a bright light in the sky that fries the phone. Suddenly, every electrically powered device like gun lasers, computers, electrically operated buses, and phones stops working. Sakura explains that the light they saw earlier was an EMP attack caused by a nuclear explosion in the upper atmosphere. While she explains, her parents join in on the conversation and ask what they can do to remedy the situation. She reveals that some classic cars might still work if there is a capable engineer who can tweak them a little bit. At the same time, a commotion at the gate draws everyone's attention to the incoming horde of zombies approaching the estate. The boss orders his men to immediately close off the gate. However, one zombie manages to get in at the last minute. The guards, who have no experience fighting zombies, start freaking out, but Fatso quickly headshots them, proving beyond all reasonable doubt that he's a valuable asset. Sakura's mom immediately switches into Lara Croft mode once she's handed her weapons. Fatso tries to stop himself from nose bleeding and worshipping the goddess before his eyes, but Sakura won't even permit it. They wait patiently as the undead push down the gate with their immense numbers and immediately begin attacking and feasting on everyone on sight. The bitch-faced ladies group who refuse to believe in violence are the first to be eaten alive. When she is faced with a choice between life and death, she picks up a knife and stabs the zombies frantically. In the end, she too is devoured by the overwhelming number of the undead, and as she is surrounded, she screams like a bitch as they take turns eating her. Takashi quickly takes on the zombies approaching the entrance with his shotgun. He aims at their chests like he was taught, blasting them away, while Seiko uses the 5th form of the zombie breathing style to slay every foe she comes across. Ray joins in the fight as well as Fatso, who is assisted by Alice when it's time to reload. As the battle drags on, the boss decides that the smart move will be to evacuate the premises. Although Sakura argues that it's a bad idea, he makes her understand that if the zombies can bring down the gate, they won't be safe inside the house. He tells the group to take their daughter and find their own path while they find a way to protect their own people. They first go to the garage to check if the tank is still working, but the mechanic explains that he'll need a little more time to fix the damage if they plan on using it to escape. With that said, they draw a defense line in front of the garage to hold back the zombies until the car is ready to move. When it counts the most, Sakura ends up saving Melon Sensei with her weapon I totally thought was just for decoration. They are finally able to start the car thanks to the awesome mechanic, who also promises to buy them time while they head out. They head out of the estate with blistering speed, leaving the adults behind while they head into town. Thanks to Melon Sensei's amazing driving skills, they manage to pass through narrow spaces without slowing down until they finally get past the area filled with clusters of undead. The next morning, they find themselves facing another horde of zombies on the highway, but everyone has gotten so accustomed to fighting that they instinctively know to take up their roles as they prepare for the 6th day of hell in the undead pandemic.